So NBC News is reporting something that I think people will be happy about. Just in, House and Senate Democrats introduced legislation to raise the federal minimum wage from $7.25 an hour to $15 by 2025. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to point out is what everybody else is pointing out, which is 2025, really? Now, understand, guys, usually with bills like this, there's always a phase-in period. That's not unique. That's common. There's always a phase-in period for stuff like this. But do I agree with the criticism that the phase-in is too long? Yeah, I do. I think that 2025 is, that's literally years in the future. Maybe you could squeeze that timeline to like 2 years to get it to $15 an hour, and I'd be like, okay, I see, because there is a benefit to doing it gradually versus a blunt all-at-once thing. But yeah, 2025 that's a long way off. So I agree with the criticism that that's too long of a timeline. They should have crunched that a little bit. Now, the other thing people are pointing to is they chained this to median wage growth. Now, my first thought was, oh, well, that's a bullshit way of weaseling out of having regular raises attached to it. But it turns out my gut reaction was incorrect, because when you do the math on it, you find out that chaining it to median wage growth actually is even a little bit better than chaining it to inflation. See, because that's what I would have originally thought was the right way to go. You do a $15 an hour minimum wage, a living wage, and then you chain it to inflation so that it always remains a living wage. I thought chaining it to median wage growth is a problem because that doesn't grow as much as inflation, but I was wrong because the numbers show it's actually a little bit better than chaining it to inflation. So that's a good thing. It's a good thing that they're chaining it to median wage growth. Now you could say, hey, chaining it to inflation might be more consistent over an extended period of time where you get better regular raises. That might be true. So maybe the way to do it is to go with inflation, which is the original idea that I liked. But suffice to say that at least in terms of roughly how it works out, it's almost like you are chaining it to inflation by chaining it to median wage growth. Okay, so one of the criticisms I think is legit. They should crunch that timeline more. The other criticism, which I had, turns out it's just incorrect when you do the numbers on it, when you do the math on it. So listen, this is good. This is good. Now the question becomes the process behind it. So I don't know. An increase in the minimum wage is part of the $1.9 trillion COVID relief package that they brought up last week. So I don't know exactly the mechanics of what's going on here. They're sort of throwing a bunch of things at the wall, and I guess they're seeing what sticks. But you're not going to get this through with 60 votes. In a world that made sense, you actually would, because it's an 80% issue in the country. You're not going to get this through with 60 votes through regular order. So again, you'd need reconciliation to get it through, 51 votes. And there appears to be a little bit of a battle behind the scenes as to whether or not they're actually going to do it through reconciliation. Bernie is doing everything he can to get it through reconciliation. He's saying if we can't get it through regular order, we better do it through reconciliation ASAP. In fact, he's talking with the Congressional Budget Office, and they crunch the numbers on stuff like this. And he's trying to make the case that, listen, this thing is a giant win for the economy, because when you raise the minimum wage, what happens is, one of the consequences of that is people end up getting off of other government programs, because people right now work for starvation wages, and then they need to run to the government to get SNAP food stamps in order to survive. So if you raise the minimum wage, a lot of people will be off of food stamps because now they make enough money on their own to afford the food. So Bernie's been making the case behind the scenes that this actually reduces the welfare state when you raise the wage, because now you're just making it so corporations pick up more of the bill than the government does. So he's arguing that behind the scenes. He's saying, for sure, we're going to put this through reconciliation if it doesn't get through regular order. And now I just learned before I came on air, the number 2 Democrat in the Senate said the same thing. Said, yes, we'll do it through reconciliation if need be. So now the question becomes, okay, it looks like they're going to do it through reconciliation. They better do it through reconciliation. But are they going to do just this through reconciliation? Or are they going to pair it with other things? Now, the benefit of doing just this is giant wins in terms of marketing. where you could slam the Republicans all day long and say, we are the ones who raised wages. Look, we did it. We did it in a standalone bill. So that's the upside of it. The downside of doing it through reconciliation is you only get 3 shots of reconciliation per year, and to do just this as opposed to a package means you're sort of limiting the amount of progressive change that you can get through. So I don't know. I don't know which is the right way. All I know is they fucking better get it through reconciliation, because I still fear a little bit at that last moment the Democrats will do a classic Democratic move and say, oh gosh golly, I don't think we can get it through reconciliation because maybe it's just not the right thing to get through reconciliation, and maybe it doesn't meet the rules very much, so maybe we should not try to get it through reconciliation, and we should just lay down in a chalk outline of ourselves. The Republicans, you know what they got through reconciliation? Their giant tax cut for corporations and the rich, which added about $2 trillion to the deficit. So they put whatever the hell they wanted through reconciliation. The Democrats are like debating, maybe not, get an increase in the minimum wage through reconciliation. They better do it, man. I'm leaning towards they probably will do it, but I still fear at the last minute they're going to bitch out. So we'll see, but listen, this is good. And, you know, I mean, I hope they'll change it to crunch that timeline a little bit. 2025 is a long way off, but we're close, man. We're getting close. Like, we might have some very, very tangible wins very soon.